Is the world on the brink of a major trade war? The tension between the United States and its global trade partners has reached new heights following President Donald Trump's aggressive tariff policies. These tariffs have not only strained relations with China, Mexico, and Canada, but have now set their sights on the European Union. As economic uncertainty grows, European leaders are scrambling to respond to Trump's latest trade threats. Could this lead to an all-out economic confrontation between the US and Europe? President Trump's decision to impose tariffs has already had a significant impact on international trade. Canada and Mexico were hit with 25% tariffs, while China faced even steeper tariffs of up to 60% on certain products. These aggressive measures sent shockwaves through global markets, raising fears of a prolonged economic battle. However, Trump didn't stop there. Europe was next in line. European leaders quickly recognized the seriousness of the situation and gathered in Brussels for a high-stakes meeting focused on defense and economic stability. The primary concern? How to handle Trump's tariff agenda. During a press conference, Trump made it clear that his administration was prepared to move forward with tariffs against the European Union. He criticized the EU's trade practices, claiming that Europe had long taken advantage of the United States. His remarks, delivered with his signature bluntness, sent a strong message: tariffs on European goods were coming, and they would be announced soon. The United Kingdom, despite its efforts to navigate a post-Brexit trade landscape, was also caught in the crossfire. Trump's comments suggested that Britain, like the rest of the EU, would have to endure a tough period of trade negotiations. These bold declarations created a wave of anxiety among European leaders, who knew they had to respond quickly and decisively. Macron takes a stand against Trump as EU leaders deliberated over their response to Trump's tariff threats. French President Emmanuel Macron took center stage. He delivered a statement that not only caught the attention of European leaders but likely surprised even Donald Trump himself. Macron's message was clear: Europe would not back down. Speaking at the EU Defense Summit in Brussels, Macron emphasized that if the United States escalated trade tensions, Europe must respond with strength and unity. He argued that Europe should not allow itself to be bullied into submission and that retaliatory measures should be taken if necessary. Macron's words carried weight, as France has been one of the most vocal proponents of European economic independence in recent years. To counter Trump's aggressive trade policies, Macron outlined a strategy aimed at reducing Europe's economic dependence on foreign powers. He proposed a plan to strengthen the EU's industrial and technological infrastructure, increase defense spending, and adopt a more strategic economic approach. His vision included reforms to the European Investment Bank's financing mechanisms, increased support for public and private sector investments, and prioritization of European industries in procurement decisions. By taking these steps, Macron hoped to solidify Europe's position as a global economic force capable of standing up to the United States. European leaders rally behind Macron. Macron's firm stance resonated across the European Union, prompting other leaders to voice their support. French Industry Minister Marc Ferrac echoed Macron's sentiments, arguing that any response to U.S. tariffs must be forceful and directly target American interests. He stressed that negotiations with Washington should involve a power dynamic rather than one-sided concessions. Meanwhile, François Villeroy de Galhau, governor of the Bank of France, described Trump's existing tariffs as draconian and warned that they would only lead to greater economic instability. Beyond France, other EU leaders expressed concerns about the potential consequences of Trump's trade war. The EU's foreign policy chief, Kaja Kallas, warned that there would be no winners in a trade war. European Council President Antonio Costa reinforced this point, emphasizing that EU member states were united in their approach to the crisis. NATO Secretary-General Mark Rutte also weighed in, highlighting the economic interdependence between the US and Europe. He noted that the United States profited significantly from selling defense equipment to Europe and that escalating trade tensions could disrupt this balance. Despite the growing anxiety, European leaders were determined to prevent a full-scale economic conflict. German Chancellor Olaf Scholz reassured the public that the EU was strong enough to withstand any trade war initiated by the United States. However, he also stressed the importance of avoiding unnecessary and senseless trade conflicts. Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk took a similar stance, emphasizing that Europe and the United States were allies and that a trade war would be a mistake. In the face of external threats from Russia and China, he argued Europe and the US should be working together rather than fighting over tariffs. Danish Prime Minister Mette Frederiksen took a firmer approach, warning that if the Trump administration imposed harsh tariffs on Europe, the EU would respond with a collective and strong countermeasure. Meanwhile, Irish Prime Minister Michael Martin urged both sides to seek a diplomatic resolution, pointing out that protectionist policies ultimately harm citizens everywhere. Finnish Prime Minister Petteri Orpo also called for negotiations, emphasizing that Europe must focus on security concerns rather than trade disputes. France and the US. A rocky relationship. Trump's tariff threats are just the latest in a long history of tensions between the United States and France. Relations between the two nations have been on a steady decline since Trump took office. His withdrawal from the Paris Climate Agreement and the World Health Organization sent a clear signal that he was distancing the US from international cooperation. Historically, France and the US have had a complicated relationship. In 2007, diplomatic ties improved under French President Nicolas Sarkozy, who embraced a pro-American stance. However, this camaraderie was short-lived. By 2017, tensions had returned, with Macron frequently clashing with Trump over key issues. In April 2018, Macron addressed the U.S. Congress and urged the Trump administration to reconsider its decision to leave the Paris Climate Agreement. His remarks were met with hostility from certain U.S. lawmakers, who labeled him a socialist, militarist, and globalist. As time went on, Trump's criticisms of Macron became more pointed. In late 2018, Trump publicly mocked Macron over a range of issues, including France's defeat in World War II, the idea of a European army, and Macron's declining approval ratings. The tension escalated further in 2019 when Macron questioned the US's commitment to its European allies. These long-standing conflicts have only been exacerbated by Trump's latest tariff move. What's next for US-EU trade relations? The big question now is, will Trump push forward with his tariffs, or will diplomatic efforts prevail? If the US moves ahead with harsh economic penalties on the EU, it could set off a dangerous cycle of retaliation. The EU has already indicated that it will not hesitate to impose counter-tariffs on American goods, which could escalate into a prolonged trade war. At the same time, some European leaders continue to push for dialogue, hoping to find a solution that avoids economic turmoil. The coming weeks will be crucial in determining whether the situation leads to a constructive resolution or further fractures in transatlantic relations. For now, one thing is certain: Emmanuel Macron and his European counterparts are ready to fight back against Trump's tariff agenda. Whether this showdown ends in a compromise or an economic war remains to be seen. What do you think? Should Europe take a stronger stance against Trump's trade policies, or should both sides seek a peaceful resolution? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below.